Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure. Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you this evening. This evening we'll be having a speaker, Chrisanne Kirstein, and I'm excited to have you all here. She will be delivering a topic titled Unleashing the Power of Business Analytics. And today we are going to explore how leveraging business analytics can transform decision-making processes, optimize performance, and drive innovation within organizations. So whether you are new to the field or looking to deepen your understanding, this session aims to provide valuable insights and practical strategies to harness the full potential of business analytics. However, before I introduce her, I'll quickly go over some house rules. Please take note that the presentation will be 45 minutes long. You may post your questions in the main chat and we'll read them to the presenter when it is time for question and answer. The presentation will be uploaded to the IIBA South Africa YouTube page found on the link. Please take note that unfortunately, we do not send out the presentation deck. To become a IIBA member, kindly visit us on our website and please join the community. For our next event, also visit our events page on our website and on LinkedIn. And if you would also like to present a tool and technique to the community, please contact us at our email address, professionaldevelopment@southafricaiiba.org. I'll quickly introduce Chrisanne Kirstein. She is a seasoned professional known for her expertise in fostering inclusive cultures and driving high-performance team. She comes with over 15 years of experience as a business analyst consultant. She has a proven track record of success in analysis, project, and product ownership. She has showcased her skills at various international and local events, and she is an active member of the business analysis and product ownership community. She is committed to mentorship and believes in empowering the next generation of professionals. Chrisanne's passion for making a meaningful impact drives her career journey. Chrisanne, you are welcome and the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. All right. Welcome, everyone. I'm happy to be part of this presentation this evening. So let me just grab the minute here to share my screen. And all right. I'm hoping everyone can see that and you can hear me fine. Okay. So what are we talking about? Unleashing the power of business analytics, as Tim introduced all of that. So I want to take you in a little bit around how we learn about all those alternative data sources. A lot of that's gaining traction now in the business analytics field. The visualization around it, all those different statistical tools that are coming out, all of that assists us in analyzing all this data. And then I'm also going to explore a little bit on where do we as BAs then fit in and how do we stay relevant in this revolution. So just at a high level, some of the items that we're going to cover, I'm going to talk a little bit around the analytics, then just examine the data, what do we do with it? And then the application of the analytics, extraction those insights, and then us as BAs. And that will end off the session. So when we look at analytics revealed, so there's 6 phases that we're sort of going to go through. We've got data-driven decision-making. We've got performance optimization. I've got predictive modeling, competitive advantage, the customer centricity, and then obviously that continuous improvement. So it already builds a process. It builds momentum. So when I look at data-driven decision-making, that's leveraging data. You leverage the data, you gain valuable insights from it, and you make evidence-based decisions because you've got it there, it's real, you've analyzed it, now you can make a decision based on what that data is telling you. The performance optimization, utilizing the analytics to identify the areas of efficiencies. Okay, so how does the business and the organization now take this in? What do we do with the waste? Where are the bottlenecks within that organization? Implementing those targeted improvements to then optimize your performance from a business perspective. Productivity, right? Then the predictive modeling, applying all those advanced analytics, the techniques, do forecast trending, anticipate what the customer behavior is going to be, proactively address the potential challenges that's out there and the opportunities around the organization. Competitive advantage, okay, gaining a deeper understanding. What are those industry trends? What is the consumer preferences? Okay, what am I looking for in the competitives? How do I maintain being strong in the market from a business perspective? Then customer centricity, using the data, you have a deeper understanding, you get those customer needs, you see what their preferences are, you can track their behaviors, okay? Allow the business to then personalize experiences, become more intrinsic, enhance that customer satisfaction. And that also creates that long-term loyalty and builds a relationship with the customer. And then the last one there is the continuous improvement. Okay, embrace analytics as ongoing. We know from us, from a few of us that do process analysis, you don't stop there, right? It's ongoing. It's an iterative process. We've got to continuous monitoring it. Look at that organizational strategies, enable that ongoing learning, and it promotes a culture of innovation. Okay. Right. So now I'm examining the data. Okay. How are you going to do that? You're going to look at the relevant patterns. You're going to look at trends. You gain the insights. You build the knowledge. All of that is known as analytics. And I use methods, certain methods to extract that data. There's statistical analysis, machine learning, there's data mining, predictive modeling. Today, I'm going to touch on the statistical analysis. I'm going to give you a few examples there. And then we're also going to speak about the predictive modeling. Machine learning, data mining, two complete separate sessions. So that's like topics on their own. They can take a lot of time. But yeah, so for today, we'll focus on the statistical side and predictive. Alrighty, so the core focus of analytics. Okay, so what is my goalpost around analytics? You've got to use the insights. You want to make an informed, specific, and actionable decision. And that will then explain past performances to help you predict or direct what that future is going to look like. So here we see a little bit of a diagram familiar to us as analysts. We like these diagrams. You start at one point, but it forms a circle because it continuity, right? So define the need, explore the data, analyze the data, predict what is likely to happen, optimize, find the best solution, make those decisions and measure those outcomes. You don't just stop there and then update. You've got to look at those results in the decisions, continually move forward. And what does all of this mean? The firm is being empowered. Companies are being empowered. They're leveraging the power of data. You can spot the trends, streamline the operations, reduce those risks, foster a strategic growth, increase the globalized and technology-driven world, become competitive, right? So ultimately, your decision gives you that desired outcome. You understand the decision that will benefit that company, and you put those strategies in place. And that's where we as analysts play a huge, very valuable, important role. So when I look at application of business analytics itself, data analysis techniques is there to understand past performances. You've got to inform the decision about the future and point the direction. Okay. Again, the goal decision is there to positively impact the business. Okay. You're not just collecting data and it's like all over the place and now what you do with it. It's got to add value. All right. And then the methods how we extract that data is what's going to help you to get the insights from that data. So when I look at, this is an example of the application of analytics. Let's say, for instance, we're looking at weather forecasting. Okay, so a lot of scientists use this to predict certain weather patterns, right? The two scatter plots that I've used here, one is for weekdays, one is on weekends. There's two variables in both of these. We've got the number of visitors in a certain site versus temperature. And there where you can see where there's a lot of points revealing and it's very close together, there's a close correlation. In other words, there's a relationship building. We can now see, okay, during warmer time during the week, there's a way more visitors on that site. So you can start predicting from there. In this, Cape Town, for example, 90% chance of precipitation, gale force winds. So what am I going to do? Right, move my vehicle inside and maybe back up the servers. All right, so you can start using it to, again, make that informed decision. Right, so drive the useful insights from those available information sources used in weather predictions, environmental analysis, medical diagnostics. All of that can be used there. Just to continue a little bit there, you can also apply to inform business intelligence. There was a study on the One World Observatory. They saw that there was a fluctuation in weather, but then that also had an impact on the amount of visitors that went to the observatory. So there, what they did is they optimized employee to customer ratio. So what that means is on a good sunny day when they can predict from the weather, remember the intelligence there is sunny days, open skies, more customers. What do I need to do as a business? Put more people on the floor to help. And that's where you get that employee to customer ratio. So you can expand on the intelligence there. South Africa uses it a lot in our agricultural sectors. Understand the prediction of those rainfalls, so now you can look into crop yielding, plant season. How do I get a viable crop during the rain seasons? So the important thing to remember here is to note the need for the certainty in the results of the analysis. It's crucial to all applications of analytics. Okay, so without high quality data and a predefined level of confidence in your results, analytics cannot drive that effective decision making. Okay. Right. So the applicability in business, lots of information here. We got this from UCT. It is long ago, so it could definitely have changed rapidly already. But between 2017 and 2018, enough data was generated to account for 90% of global data. So you can just imagine how quickly this is growing. And then the impact on what we're going to do with it. Where do we store it? How do we analyze it? And it's coming in so quickly. So all of that analytics really helps with that. So we enable to extract the valuable insights. So given these challenges of the increased complexity, it's imperative that analysts learn how to interpret those underlying structures of the data collected. Okay. How do we do that? So this is where we're going to touch on the statistical methods and techniques. Now, there's quite a few out there. I zoomed in a little bit on the factor analysis, regression analysis, and cluster analysis. It can become very technical, so I'm not going to go into that level of detail here tonight, but I'm more than happy to have that conversation at a later stage. This is just to show you what are those methods that's out there that you can go and apply, because what you've done now is, you remember our circle, the core circle of analytics. So you've got the data now, you extract the data, you gain the insight, but how do you put all of this together? How do you start analyzing that? So, right, factor analysis, that's a statistical method that builds that relationship between the variables. What does it look like? Dietary patterns. They use it in socioeconomic statuses. In a certain area geographically, is there a difference in income? How does that impact the buyer? So all those kind of things start measuring out, and you can present that in bar charts, in a scatter plot that we used with the weather analytics. Then regression analysis. This one, there can be a lot of complexity there because you work with predictors, you work with correlations, you work with different models, logistic regression. So lots of jargon. I'm sorry about that. But we can go into that detail. It's just to see what are those changes. You examine and understand what those relationships are between these variables and how it progresses. Okay. And the one that I'm going to zoom in a little bit on is the cluster analysis. This one I always find quite interesting. This is where we go and you say, okay, we've got multiple applications in different disciplines. So what does that look like? Okay, so for example, I've got a ungrouped stack of coins. I mean, that's a mix of stuff. The first thing I would go and do is say, right, so maybe let's group it. Let's go and we group these coins by face value. Okay, so I put in there all the 2 rands together, all the 5 rands together, the 1 rands, the 50s, the 50 cents, 20 cents. Right. I can even take this a step further and say, okay, let's group it by color and metal. Okay, so there's a combination of face value and color. You see the 2 rands and the 1 rands are together. I've got 10, 15, 20s, the 5s and the 5 rand. Okay. Alternatively, you can then go a step further and group it by similarities by the purchasing power. So now I've grouped it by the inherent value. Okay. So what this just in the end tells me is that there's distinct groups. Okay. So the objects are similar within the groups, but dissimilar between the groups. So in this group, I can see similarities. Between that one and the 5 rands, there's no similarity. So just an example to show you how you can do it. So the important thing is just to understand what the data types are that you're dealing with, where did it come from, and then you can start analyzing it using these different methods and then present that. Other applications of analytics that we can look at, there's a few interesting ones here. You can use cluster or factor. This is going to go into a bit more of a technical analysis. You've got fraud and risk detection as example. Okay, what am I looking for there? Algorithms, fraud detection algorithms. They scan a large volume of transaction data. Pick up patterns, see if there's a change in the consumer behavior. You know, there's something's happening on a specific account. What's happening is the customer defaulting, or was there actually a risk involved there? Make contact so they can pick that up. Customer segmentation. Okay. This, you investigate customer purchasing trends, preferences. What are they doing out there? Is this specific campaign that we've been running for the past month, is it actually working? What is customer doing? As our costs reduced, should we increase our sales? There's lots of information. So depend on what you want out of that data. That's how you're going to start measuring it. Supply chain management is another one. Employee career progression, stock market analysis. Let's talk a little bit about that one. Financial analysts. You can also use these analytical tools, of course. What's the stock market doing? Okay. What is the data out there? Use it based on for your daily decisions, whether you want to buy more stock, sell more stock. So it really starts influencing the purchasing trend in terms of the stock. So the statistical analysis informs the decision making. So that's a critical part of business analytics. So now I've got the data. I've done a little bit of an analysis, used my methods. I want to extract those insights. So with the assistance of the technology, the analytical and the statistical methods, which we've had, and the computer-based modeling, the field of business analytics is established because the applying of these tools, you get there to solve the problem. So you use the information and the data analytics, solve the problem, you inform the future decision. Okay. And doesn't that really sound a lot like what we do as business analysts? Okay, we elicit information, gather the information, do analysis around it, populate those documents, look at the detail, identify those gaps, and in the end, come up with a solution. Similar concept. Different data types. Okay, there's quite a few out there. I'm going to focus on time series, image data, language data, and then, of course, the last one, geospatial data, which is quite interesting. These are just your various data types. Okay, so when I look at time series data, most cases, this is a collection, it occurs one single point in time. Okay, in season, if I look at seasonality, for example, I know myself, during the winter months, I'm not that active out in the shops, so fewer products can be sold during the colder months. Summer months, customers tend to be more out there and they purchase more. Okay, so it's based on season. Time trending data. What am I doing there? You're recognizing consistent patterns in data that show positive or negative trends. Okay, so is there an upward trend in the product sales? Am I wasting my time here putting out these campaigns? How do I gauge if we've met our sales goals? So time trending data, it's going to tell you over time that we meet those goals or not. Do I need to action and what am I going to change? Mean reverting data that reflects back on finances, traders, investment firms, price fluctuations. Look at what are we going to do in terms of the stock? Where does it flare up? Do I need to start selling at higher prices, buying undervalued stock? Lots of valuable information that can come out of the time series data. Image data. Here's something for all of us. The smartphones and social media, selfies. Think about the demographics, the purchasing patterns, preferences. I had something, I never heard of it before up until last week when I was looking for bookend holders. Temu. It just popped up, said, okay, I can see it's also selling these products, but I'm not interested in that right now. Now, everywhere I go on Google search, or if I go into Facebook or Instagram, Temu pops up as a little advert at the bottom because it picked up those algorithms. It saw what I was searching for, and it records that. So just think about the large volume of data that you can actually read from the interaction with the media. Logo recognition. A lot of companies do brand recognition. They use it as a risk management tool. It's just there to spot those misuse of their brands, the logos, the copyrighted assets. So be careful when you go and copy and paste some of these logos. A lot of them have it's labeled as a stock image. So, but that's what image data is all about. Language data, very interesting one. Lots of growth happening in this area. The natural language processing. Okay, I'm sure a lot of you have heard about Amazon Alexa. Okay, so what does Alexa do? Alexa, it's a digital device. It records and processes that spoken language. It converts it into a digital instruction. And that instruction is stored on servers. It's hosted by Amazon, of course. And then that algorithm goes and it identifies all those different keywords to then help formulate a response back. So the more you have that conversation, the bigger that vocabulary becomes. Okay, so the whole idea around Alexa was to provide that we want to move away from that in-person service. Our companies needed ways to maintain customer satisfaction, but also keep up with a good user experience and have that interaction. And that's where Alexa popped up. Another one making ground is Copilot. There's still a lot of testing happening there. I've also been involved in some of the trainings, but it's huge. You've got protected versions. You've got one that can just give you this lovely PowerPoint presentation or roll up all the Excel files and it looks nice. I've seen it in some of my searches when I do research. It can give you a nice description. And then Microsoft 365 also has it. It's quite big, so I would advise you go and explore that. I think it's going to be rolled out through a lot of companies where there's licenses, and to use for projects going forward. Just some of the other business use cases that I'm just going to touch on. There's chatbots. Okay, all of that is NLP, customer sentiment insights, customer service, advertising, market intelligence that keep businesses up to date with market trends. Okay, what are the standards and the preferences? What are those events happening out there? What is that impact on the business outcome? And then, of course, the big one, paper to digital, right? All those books, encyclopedias, dictionaries, clinical notes, all of that converted into a digital footprint. So it's imperative in the digital age to seamlessly connect humans to computers, and you can do this through the data. Geospatial data. Okay. There's also a lot there. Retail sales, footprints, collect information like what does the foot traffic look like in a certain area? You know, I've got a McDonald's 20 kilometers away from where I currently reside. Is it viable to put up a franchise closer? Yeah, maybe if there's footprint, the roads are accessible, I can see that there's communication happening there. People actually drive 10, 20 kilometers to get to that McDonald's. Maybe it's a good idea to put it up here. So, but they need to look at the geospatial data. You know, you've got to look at what are those neighboring contributors. If I think about the urban planning and development, there's a lot of things that play a role there before you just go and put a city together. We've got to look at energy consumption. What are the water supplies? What are the sanitation provisions, the housing, transportation, accessibility to schools and other curricular activities? And planners use that information. They use that spatial data to actually make those decisions and to get to a point of real estate and more communication lines. So a little bit of detail now in the analytics, prescriptive analytics. Okay, there's actually three parts to this. There's descriptive, then that is your what happened. Then I have predictive analytics, what is going to happen, what will happen. And then you have your prescriptive analytics. How can we make it happen? So a while back, I think it was in August last year, September, there was this whole outbreak of avian flu and a huge egg shortage. Okay, so that's quite a good example to apply this analytics to illustrate what these different concepts mean. Okay, so if I think about descriptive analytics, okay, what is that? That's historical data to understand what has happened, okay, in the past. So in the context of the egg shortage and the avian flu, the data that you've collected is, it could include records of egg production, chicken health data, maybe the weather conditions, the area, lots that can come out there. At the end of the day, it can reveal that avian flu outbreaks are more frequent in certain regions. And maybe it's also seasonal related. So it all coming out of that historical information. Then predictive analytics, okay? That aims to forecast the future trends, all the events based on what happened in the past, okay? So again, in context of the egg shortage and the avian flu. So, for example, the probability of the avian flu outbreaks during a certain season in a specific area with specific weather conditions. Okay, because you immediately could, from the historical information, see that there is a relationship there. That can help you assess the risks of future events, such as egg shortage due to the avian flu. It allows you to proactively plan for potential challenges and allocate more resources accordingly. You know, make sure that we've got supply that we've now predicted. So put your measures and your contingencies in place. And then we get to the prescriptive analytics. Now we're providing recommendations on all these actions based on the predictive insights. Okay, so it's a follow on from your predictive analytics. Actionable recommendations here is you're helping them make informed decisions to address egg shortage, the problem, while mitigating the risk that's associated with the avian flu. Okay, so it equips those decision makers to make those actionable recommendations. You've got all the information, you've extracted the insights, you've done your analysis around it. So how do we prescribe to prevent it going forward? So that's just in summary, descriptive, understand the historical context, predictive, do the forecast for future risks, and then prescriptive, mitigate those shortages the impact, and prevent further avian flu outbreaks, or you can at least isolate it to a specific area. So now, how do we do all of this? As a business analyst, we've got access to a wide range of tools and resources. We have the abilities when we introduce to all of these analytical tools like Power BI, Python, Tableau, and R. Okay, so we introduce to the tools, we visualize and we analyze those data sets. We extract the insights and we address those business challenges. So that all sits within your capabilities as an analyst. The power sits in your hands. So you'll see these are the tools that you can use. A lot of them become very technical, but the information, once you extract it, you can display it in those lovely looking dashboards like with Tableau and Power BI. And I'm going to go a little bit into detail there because that brings us to you as a business analyst, your capabilities. Okay, so where do the expertise lie and the skills, and how do you represent that? So when I look at enhanced data analysis, you gain a versatile skill set for data analysis. Okay, so you're enabling them to choose the most suitable tool for the specific task. So that's very data focused. The advanced analytics, there you've got Python, R, that empowers the analyst to perform the complex statistical and machine learning analysis. So you uncover patterns, you make predictions, and you offer those sophisticated outcomes. Okay. Data storytelling, that's a nice one. We do storyboards, we do user stories, very similar here. You can use Power BI, Tableau. It creates that understandable data story. And it's very crucial when you start conveying that message and you want to show and visualize those insights and say you sit with a non-technical audience. How are you going to do that? You can't show them the code in that Python query or the script that's run in the R. No, you're going to show them that lovely looking dashboard or the scatter plot where you can talk to the difference of the variables and the trends that's happening. And that's what the non-technical person is going to see. So know your audience, okay? Understand who you're dealing with. And that brings me to the flexibility. Okay, so how flexible are you in terms of blending the tools, blending the techniques? How do you put what together and what is that outcome going to look like? So be sure of what those challenges are and what the business needs are. And lastly, cost efficiency. Okay, so you understand your organization, you know what's happening in your organization. Some of these tools have a cost attached to it, there's licenses involved. So just think how you position it and how you can get the information out of it. Maybe build that skill around R and Python because those are open source tools. And then just see how you can present that back to your audience. Right. So what's the difference? I'm thinking maybe you've asked this question to yourself. I saw an update on LinkedIn from our Kenya chapter earlier this week or last week around business analysis versus business analytics. So very similar, this talks to that. So if we look at the similarities, you analyze and improve business, both. You find solutions to the problems. You build things based on requirements. Okay, there's an instruction received. So what is the real difference between the two? So if I look at analytics, I say, okay, it's prospective and it aims to model and forecast those future events, okay, or the outcomes based on the data-driven insights. Analysis, retrospective, and it focuses on that understanding of the previous events and the implications of that before you put forward that solution. So the focus and the goals just differ, but there's lots of similarities there, and in combination, two can work very well together. Right, so we're nearing the end here. Also, from one of our professors, some research that we did said, okay, so what does the future actually predict for us? Okay, the future of business analytics, it raises several very important questions. What are the predictions for the future of business analytics itself? What are the challenges associated with analytics in this digital age? And then how will the future of business analytics improve those business performances? And how can we as a business prepare for the future of analytics? I've put some of the answers there. I'm just going to briefly give you a summary of all of that. So we've got to embrace the power of business analytics. It's essential for all organizations and for us as analysts. We've got to navigate that challenge, okay, of the digital age, and we've got to navigate it successfully. Look at the skill sets, okay. Analytics heavily relies on those statistical techniques, okay? Data visualization, AI, machine learning. So you'll definitely need to be exposed to those, get a little bit of an understanding how it rolls up. Organizations must invest in skilled analysts, have a robust infrastructure, effective data management. That's going to bring you to that enhanced data-driven decision, okay? Improve the performance, remain competitive, very important. Prepare for the future of analytics. That requires continuous commitment in upskilling the staff, strengthening the infrastructure, addressing all the securities, all the concerns, and embrace that migration into the cloud. We know that's the route it's going. We can't avoid it. By prioritizing all these actions, businesses can definitely navigate an ongoing digital transformation successfully, and we can secure that long-term success. Add value, have that competitive edge. So, just lastly, when with this whole increase in globalization, the cloud-based technologies, the business analytics environments, it's just changing rapidly and constantly. So I've got to stay relevant. We've got to stay relevant. You've got to experience the presentations of these data types. What is the technology and the data collections out there? What does it mean for the business? Ask those questions. So we've got to adapt. Okay. Remain up to date with the trends. Know what those new platforms are. Know how they talk to each other. What do I use with what? Flexibility, right? Learn. And then lastly, continue to harness the knowledge. Build that skill. Stay relevant. You've got to move forward in this new era. Just thrive. It's imperative that we remain up to date with all these trends and the new platforms. And that is the end. I hope you learned something. I hope there's something that you can take home, go do some exploration. It's really a very interesting field to get involved in. And I think it's just growing. It's going to mold all of it. So yeah, stay relevant, go out there and broaden your horizons. Any questions? I think, let me just go out of this presentation.
Thank you so much, Chrisanne, for that valuable insights and presenting us the practical strategies that enables us to harness the full potential of business analytics. And I think something key for me there is that the ability, or what you showed us about the usefulness of business analytics in the context of a business analysis. That's very key. And thank you so much for presenting that. I think we'll open floors for questions. We have a lot of questions in the chat. I think some of them you might have answered them while presenting, but I will go through some of those questions. Please, guys, keep questions coming in, and I'm sure Chrisanne will be able to unpack all these questions and answer them.
Yeah, and if there's anything, we can have an open conversation about it as well. You've got my contact details. If we want to go deeper into some of the analysis techniques, the analytical techniques, so that opens a whole different arena. Happy to explore that.
I think it's a comment from Liana here. She said she's going to predict the outcome of the upcoming election in May using probably what you presented.
Ask her how she's going to do that. Have she got the right data sets to do that?
Well,
Make sure
Leanna,
you've got the right.
thank you so much for that, Leanna. I have another question here. Which popular tools are used in business analytics? I think you've answered that, but you can probably go over it again.
Okay, that's the well, the Tableau, definitely, because you can build a lot of the analytics in there. But underneath that, we use Python. So Python is quite a popular one that we use because you can build all those different regression models in there. And Tableau or Power BI sits on top of that, where you can present, what those graphs, the output of that query looks like. Those are the popular ones and the ones that I've worked with most recently. R
Okay.
is a bit more visualization, and there's coding attached to it. Obviously, you've got to build your skill in terms of some of the SQL, if you use that effectively. But they very nice because they generate the output, and as you put them in, I think when the previous tools and techniques, a lot of that was in there as well. How do you get the detail out of that data and how you run those queries? So there is a layer of SQL and code involved there.
Thank you so much, Chrisanne. I have another one from Sefundo. He's asking, which tool do you use to store data?
Store data.
Yes, correct.
Oh, I haven't. Well, I don't. I store it in the cloud at the moment, so I don't specifically store. Yeah, yeah. Personally, we use what the company provides in terms of the Microsoft 365 suite that we have, and we use our OneDrive, and that's the company, and I use that actually for everything at the moment. And then also cloud in terms of Google, some of your images and things I can place there. But nothing out of that now, the ordinary, because I don't really at this point in time deal with a lot of the big data in terms of storing it. I don't manage that at this point in time. Personally, that's what I use, yeah. And what the company prescribes as well. I hope that answered your question, Sefundo.
Another question here that's can you probably discuss ethical considerations that must be taken into account when implementing business analytics, especially when it comes to the data? What are the ethical implications here?
Yeah, definitely. I actually did a bit of a talk on that. When we look at the whole, there's a broader skill set involved here. So it includes that cultural awareness, all the international regulations, the effective communication, the difference, how do you navigate those changes between the different organizations, between different cultures, cross-border. So all of those things you've got to take into consideration when you start working with those data types. It's not just a question of gaining, get that information and now you work it. You need to understand the impact and where it's coming from. There's legalities around it. There's regulations, there's policies in using it. So you have to apply those rules and that awareness around it. So the transformation, even though it goes from a traditional local regional operational loan, but it changes to a more complex and a global orientated role. So you've got to be cognizant of what those cultural changes, what the ethics around it is, what is the security around it, your POPI, all your acts that involve the sharing of that information and how you utilize it. So definitely take that into consideration. Yes.
All right, thank you so much. Henry, I see your hand. I'll come back to you shortly. I have a question here from Bareng. He said, does data analytics use control charts, that is continuous data, and capability analysis?
That forms part of your, talking about the language data that we reference around your chatbots, or am I not understanding what you're asking?
Bareng, probably you can elaborate the question so that Chrisanne can help. I have a question from Liana again. She said Tableau versus Power BI and why?
I've used both, like both. There's both licenses. There's licenses involved. What's nice, yeah, it depends. I think it's a preference and also what your company abides by. Tableau, I really enjoyed because I now knew what Power BI was. Tableau, you could build all your different storylines in it, and you can, so you can, and what I mean with the storyline is from where you start with your factor analysis and your bar charts into a scatter plot, into a regression analysis on that specific data set. So you start building it up until eventually you have the storyboard, this dashboard where you can start showing all of that together. It all rolls up into this one view. I really like that about Tableau, but you're going to have to look at the costs. Both very effective. Yeah,
All right.
definitely preference.
No, thank you so much. Refetotswe, the recording will be available on IIBA YouTube link. Henry, can you please unmute yourself and please ask your question?
Thank you. Thank you. Great presentation. Just quickly, I've got a very selfish and ignorant question. I'm very green to the business analysis space. I only started studying this year, postgraduate diploma. So I just wanted to know, what would you recommend in terms of getting ahead, or rather a very strong positioning into getting into industry? Would it be going the Python, the data tools route through Power BI, or the Tableau programming route? I understand that you have to have SQL, definitely going to do that. But what is more in demand between the two, or is it not a zero-sum game? I think that's just two separate questions.
Yeah, it's two separate, definitely. Okay, so you've already touched on the SQL side. That is something that you definitely can start building on. It depends on. It really depends on the industry and the business that you're dealing with. If I think of just on the financial side in banks and even in our organization, Power BI. So um, it's it's standard across. Everyone knows about it. It's so easily used in terms of extracting the insights. Tableau, it's there, but I mean, I wouldn't have known about Tableau was it not prescribed in terms of what we had to learn and when we did our data extractions. I would have gone with Power BI. So I think Power BI, if you start with that, you're going to have a good understanding. And even for me, it wasn't a difficult switch, because you had that, you knew what it was supposed to be doing and how it works. The functionality very similar. You'll easily adjust if you have to switch over. But I'll start with Power BI if I can give you that bit of guidance, and use that on top of your SQL. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, you did. You're basically saying to me that if I want to get into industry, I should start, my foundation is certainly SQL, and then Power BI followed shortly after that.
Yeah, build that business intelligence piece on that.
Yeah.
Understand how you can use those different models and match up and do those extracts and the correlation. So very, very powerful. Yeah.
Got you.
Thank you so
Business.
much.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Chrisanne. More questions are coming in for you. I have a question
Here.
from Voyo. Making a career shift from business development to business analysis, kindly suggest how to navigate that without having to enter at a junior role, or one would have to start at a junior role.
Well, maybe one needs to understand where you're at currently, and if you've looked at that, your career plan and your growth plan, and you can expand on that and move from that junior into an intermediate, good. But there is a growth path that you've got to follow. Okay, it's tricky. will be luck if you like jump into that senior business analyst position, but we all basically follow that route of you set aside your career path, and junior is good. You start, you learn from the bottom up, you gather all those skills, you get exposure, you get involved in those networks. Do that. It's really a good step, and then you've already built that knowledge base. You start developing your skill sets, and that immediately opens up that path to the next level. It's important to build your knowledge, build your network, that skill set. And if you do it in 5 months and you've done the theory and practically you've applied that whole value add at the end of the day, grab the opportunity and jump for the next one. Oh, it really depends on where you're at. Where do you see yourself at right now? And what is your target? Where do you want to be, and work towards that? And it's not necessarily, for me, it's not always about, that label in terms of the role. It's what you achieve, what's the value that you add there at that point, and what comes back is their growth. And that's good, irrespective of what that label is in terms of your role. Does that answer your question?
Well, I want to believe that answered the question. I have another
Okay.
question from Caleb. The question is, Vuyo is saying thank you so much. I think that answers your question and answers his question. I have a question from Caleb. To what extent is Excel relevant to business analytics?
To what extent?
Extent, yes. Is Excel relevant to business analytics?
Your Excel has limitations, eh? I didn't even use it when we did some of those models. You can do a lot in Excel, but it hits a point where you're gonna get stuck in terms of your roll up into a dashboard, doing the different queries on those spreadsheets. Look, we currently deal with very sophisticated ones, and you cannot discard that. The guy who put that together, brilliant. I mean, some of those things just happen, and that was all done in Excel. There's calculations involved there, so definitely you can use it. But whatever sits in that Excel, can you extract that, roll it up into a portfolio dashboard? That's where it gets challenging. We've had that now with one of our projects. The filters become a little bit more complicated. And if you can put a Power BI dashboard on top of that, definitely wonderful. Yeah, but I didn't use it a lot when we did the analytics.
Okay,
you really
thank
need to
you.
know what you're doing in Excel.
Another question here. What are some emerging trends in business analytics, and how are they expected to shape the future of business decision making?
Tim, just ask that again.
What are some emerging trends in business analytics, and how are they expected to shape the future of business decision making?
So the current trends, are we talking about current trends in analytics?
Yeah, in analytics, yes, that's correct.
Okay, so, well, if you just look at, where we started in terms of the advances in terms of the technology and the quantity and the variety of the data that you're dealing with. So you sit with all of this. How do you quantify that information? And how do you analyze that information? Because it's all out there. So if you want to start making those decisions, you want the insights, you've got to apply that whole application of analytics that I looked at. So there's lots happening in that space to it's got to be faster, it's got to be quicker, it's got to tie in. And that's where you start using your machine learning and your AI and your data mining as well. So all of that is applying analytics, and those trends are just moving towards the AI, the machine learning, and data mining. if you think of that Google, the quantum, you know about the Google's quantum computer, when that one finishes 47 years of computing tasks in 6 seconds. Okay, so now you've got all of that. How are you going to analyze that? It's 241 million times faster than the one that they released in 2019. That's just like 4 or 5 years ago. So we've got to keep up with those different trends and the growth, especially in the data, and then how you bring that back into how do you analyze it.
Okay.
I hope that helped
Thank,
to answer your
yeah,
question.
thank you for that. We have more questions coming in. I have a question from Jax. What data analytic tools offer you the best data connecting capabilities to other databases or sources? Let me go over that again. What data analytic tool offer you the best data connecting capability to other databases?
Data analytics tool.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just writing it down so that I don't get this wrong. Database analytics tool that offer you the best database connection.
Yes. Capabilities. Yes.
So the database analytics tool, I'm not too up to date with all of those, but if I have to go back and think about where we touched on the different languages and the statistical and the visual analysis that we bring out, then R and Python could really connect this because it can connect to a multitude of libraries. There's different statistical packages that can run on top of that to then model that data. It can classify it. It can do those different linear modelings and do the regression analysis. Yeah, I would maybe do a little bit of research on that. Interesting question. Thank you. Yeah.
All right. We have about 2 minutes more, or just in 1 minute. There is a follow-up question from Henry. He said, can you please elaborate on the term you used in answering my questions, especially when you spoke about the business intelligence? He said, are you talking about the Power BI, or the business intelligence is something different?
No, so I would say you use look, remember, all of these are tools and techniques, okay, to get that intelligence out of your information. Remember that example I used in terms of the weather analytics where we spoke about the observatory. So yes, there's patterns in the users going to a site, or customer, sorry, I'm calling it user from a analyst perspective, but consumers going to this observatory during warm days. But if you look at the intelligence behind that information, what is it actually telling you, and how can I then make that decision? Okay, there's more people, it's a sunny day, clear skies, at the employee, put more people on the floor to help. So there's a little bit of innovation and thinking around that, and that's where the intelligence come in. So it's not this that, okay, I've seen, right, there's more customers, it's a sunny day, you add a different ratio to it, and that's when you start building on the intelligence of the data. Remember, we also looked at the cluster analysis. You can go deeper and deeper and deeper and add more layers, get the intelligence out of the information. That's what I meant in terms of and Power BI can do that for you. You use your different filters and your different SQL queries that you're going to use, roll up in the data. It can become very intelligent in the information that it tells you and the trends that you're going to form out of that. Does that help you, Henry?
Yeah, I can see a thumbs up from that. I think that answers this question. So thank you so much, Chrisanne, for answering all those questions. Thank you for the presentation. And I will thank all our participants for joining us today. We wish you a lovely long weekend ahead for those in South Africa. And for those outside South Africa, do have a lovely evening. From us here, thank you so much. Bye, everyone. Guys, you can just probably unmute yourself, wave your hands, or switch on your video and just say hello as we conclude and wrap up. Thank you.
Thank
Have a
you.
Thank you,
great
thank
weekend.
you.
Thank you.
That was a good one.
Thank you so much for the presentation. Bye.
Thank
So
you.
much.
Bye bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Have a good
Bye.
weekend.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.